icy winds howl across the tundra, carrying whispers of survival and desperation. 10 towns, frozen settlements clinging to life on the edge of the world. Each town a story, each shadow a secret. Here, beneath the ever-present twilight of Oral's cruel frost, mysteries lie buried in the snow, waiting for those bold or desperate enough to uncover them. What truths linger in the frostbitten alleys, and what ancient powers slumber beneath the ice? Welcome to Icewind Dale, where the cold is not the only danger. Drizzt picked up his pace, pushing himself to the limits of his endurance. In 5 short years, he had come to care for the cluster of villages known as 10 Towns, and for the people who lived there. Like so many of the other outcasts who had finally settled there, the drow had found no welcome anywhere else in the realms. Even here, he was only tolerated by most, but in the unspoken kinship of fellow rogues. Few people bothered him. He'd been luckier than most. He had found a few friends who could look beyond his heritage and see his true character. Bruna Battlehammer, the Crystal Shard, 1351 DR. Ten Trail is the name given to the route typically taken by travellers coming to Icewind Dale, and the 10 Towns, as its name indicates. It is not a paved road, but merely an earthen path marked by the furrows of wagon wheels from the caravans that make the trip north. The cold weather, broken ground, and scarcity of places to shelter or resupply make a journey up 10 Trail arduous at best. Add in the presence of cragcats, yetis, and bandits waiting to ambush wagons laden with trade goods, and one begins to understand why only the bravest, most desperate, or most foolhardy travellers attempt the trek to Icewind Dale and the 10 Towns. 10 Trail begins at the town of Fireshire, just off the Sea of Swords, and makes its way north to the settlement of Hundlestone, perched on the foothills at the base of the spine of the world. Hundlestone marks the end of the Northern Means, the larger road that leads northwest, from Luskan to the far north. North from Hundlestone, 10 Trail leads up the mountain slopes across the north-south pass, then wends its way down into the foothills of Icewind Dale. Before the settling of Bryn Shander, 10 Trail ran all the way to Targos, and along the east side of Caer Dineval nowadays, caravans from the south who can make their way through the unrelenting frost stop, mainly in Bryn Shander. So far as most people are concerned, 10 Trail stops there too. What's Bryn Shander like, ye ask? It's 60 score humans, packed together like fish in a barrel and smelling about as sweet. Its roads are paved with the muck of the cart horses ye are constantly rubbing shoulders with, and its alehouses are filled with scoundrels that no other city in Faerun would have. And after 3 weeks on 10 Trail, you'll swear there was no lovelier sight. The first stop for most visitors to Icewind Dale is Bryn Shander, a walled town perched atop a cold, lonely, wind-lashed hill. Bright lanterns suspended over narrow streets twist in the wind and add flecks of colour to the town's otherwise drab surroundings. The friendliness in this settlement has dwindled of late. Oral's unyielding winter has greatly reduced the number of visitors to Bryn Shander, and local trade is suffering for it, eating away at the locals' sense of humour and goodwill. Still, there's no safer place in Icewind Dale to spend coin or spend the night. Bryn Shander is the largest of the 10 towns, and also the youngest. Originally, it was the site of a lone cabin on the trail to Caer Dineval, where travellers would rest before embarking on their journeys to other areas of Icewind Dale. The walls of the town stand 30 feet high and are defined by 2 concentric rings of upright wooden poles, the gap between them filled with dirt and rubble. The outer ring of poles rises above the top of the wall, providing a rampart for defenders stationed on the wood-planked walkway. The North Look Inn and Tavern is the establishment most frequented by mercenaries and adventurers, and as such is the rowdiest and most dangerous place to stay in Bryn Shander. Studded and mounted on a plaque above the hearth is Old Bitey, who pulled many a fisher into the icy depths before it was finally caught. Renderill's Emporium is the largest trade house in Bryn Shander, on the site of the original cabin around which the town sprang up. The vast assortments of the finest goods from all of 10 towns are sold here. Fishing rods, fashioned with elven yew, yeti skin coats, mithril fish hooks, and weapons crafted from Kelvin's cairn. The council hall, near the southwest gate, is a warehouse where speakers of 10 towns hold their meetings. The building is nondescript but identifiable by the heated discussions often overheard taking place. Bryn Shander is currently offering humans out into the frigid cold to appease the wrath of the Frostmaiden. Walking into Easthaven is like stepping into Icewind Dale's past. The place is a living example of the boomtown, way of life that gripped all of 10 towns centuries ago. In the generations since, as other towns have settled into a predictable pattern of existence, Easthaven has continued to grow and reinvent itself. After the Eastway was paved, Easthaven evolved into a frontier trader's paradise, fueling the jealousy of its neighbours. Easthaven's founders were thieves from the Duchy of Cape Velen, on a peninsula far to the south. They refused to bow to powerful thieves' guilds and were driven out. To this day, Easthaven honours its shady founders by declaring pickpocketing legal within the town limits, which explains the "Watch Thy Pouch" signs posed in various local establishments. Easthaven tends to attract people who are just starting out in 10 towns, as well as those who want to start over. The place seems to welcome all comers. It is a magnet for fortune seekers and the con artists who prey on them. From honourable warriors to unscrupulous merchants, from uncouth woodsmen to worldly travellers, the town displays a striking assortment of the best and worst that life in Icewind Dale has to offer. Anything goes in Easthaven, according to a local saying, and that's usually true. The White Lady Inn stands just across from the harbour, overlooking the lake. The inn is named for a local legend about the ghost of Lac Dineshire and capitalises on the morbid fascination generated by its eponymous tale. A memorial outside the southwest gate commemorates a battle between Tiago Benre and the Bala Ertu, who came to Icewind Dale seeking Dristo Erden. A circle of blackened ground is surrounded by a rock wall, the centre of which is a stone statue of Tiago and a plaque that reads, "On this spot did Master Tiago slay the demon, and the snows will cover it nevermore." This spot is constantly maintained by townfolk due to the vast snows from the Frostmaiden. To the north of the town lies Lac Dineshire. When the lake isn't frozen, keelboat transports are used to ferry people and cargo to the towns of Caer Dineval and Caer Konig for a modest fee. The boat and much of Easthaven's harbour is trapped in ice, and the town speaker has declared that ferry services must cease until the ice thaws. Banrock's Mithril Pot has the distinction of being one of the few establishments in 10 towns to have a reputation that extends outside Icewind Dale. Visitors from as far away as Baldur's Gate come here to try Banrock's pottage, which the dwarf cooks in his signature pot. When last I visited Caer Dineval, I found the town speaker living in an old fort at the top of the road, perched up there like a lord in his castle. What's he lord of? I'd like to know. A little pride is well and good, but never will I understand the vanity of men. Bjorn Steeltrike, 1482, DR. In generations past, travellers to Caer Dineval had to follow the rocky shore of Lac Dineshire, until after several hours, they spied a small fortress jutting up from the prominence where it overlooks the lake. A ferry out of Easthaven made the arduous trek unnecessary for merchants and other travellers. But the ferry was discontinued, cutting off Caer Dineval and its eastward neighbour Caer Konig from the rest of 10 towns except by the overland route. Whether arriving by land or by lake, visitors are immediately confronted by the fortifications for which the town is famous, its cliff-top Caer and the now ruined watchtower at the mouth of the harbour. Most of the town's buildings line the path that winds down the steep slope from the Caer to the harbour, perched on the rocky face like cliffside nests. The Caer was built over 400 years ago by the Dinev family, before 10 towns existed as anything more than a few scattered camps of explorers living off the land. A displaced Cormyrean family, whose sire was purportedly of noble extraction, the Dinevs built their castle on the cliffs over Lac Dineshire in a bid to claim sovereignty over the unsettled lands of Icewind Dale. The uphill climb is a tavern perched at the top of the approach to the Caer, with spectacular views of the lake and docks below. The tavern has a private dining area where the speaker of the Caer meets with merchants, adventurers, or anyone else who has important business with the town. Perched precariously between the slopes of Kelvin's Cairn and the waters of Lac Dineshire is the town of Caer Konig, its terraced rows of houses climbing up the lake's edge like the steps of an amphitheatre. Visitors that used to sail in on the ferry from Easthaven or Caer Dineval could just make out the crumbled ruins of the Caer that gave the town its name. After Caer Dineval was taken from the Orcs, the people of that town decided to set up an outpost farther up the lakeside that could spot any approaching raiders from the north. There, they built a wooden fortress like the castle at Caer Dineval and named it for their leader who had proposed the project, Caer Konig. The new stronghold was not like the one at Caer Dineval in every respect. That one had been constructed by trained workers under the capable hand of a master builder who had been hired for the task. The new one was raised by stout-hearted warriors who put great effort into its construction, but did not know how deep to sink the pylons to keep a 30-foot wall from being bent by the wind. The current harbour is frozen, its docks skewed and broken by the shifting ice. Buried under the snow on the slopes above some of the houses are the ruins of the Caer, a reminder to the people of this town that nothing lasts in this corner of the world. Frozen Far Expeditions is both a store and a professional organisation of sorts. Run by a veteran ranger named Atina Swift, the shop is the closest thing that Icewind Dale has to the adventurers' guilds that are sometimes found in the large southern cities. The Northern Light is the inn within this town. It is where visiting traders stay before making the return journey to Easthaven or Bryn Shander. The inn's name refers to a magical lantern that was enspelled by a visiting wizard decades ago. It glows with a light that slowly shifts from green to red to blue, resembling the iridescent ribbons of colour that dance across the night sky this far north. Founded by immigrants from Chult and the Villon Reach, Good Mead is nestled between Redwaters and a nearby evergreen forest. The town's squat dwellings, adorned with carvings of dinosaurs and serpents, are overshadowed by the two-storey structure of the Mead Hall, its eaves carved and painted to resemble wyverns. As honey is the key ingredient in Mead, the town literally buzzes with the droning of bees. Like most of 10 towns, Good Mead originally depended on knucklehead trout for its livelihood, selling smoked fish, raw ivory, and scrimshaw in the market at Bryn Shander. In fact, the southern lake got its name when the competition for fishing waters between Good Mead and Dougan's Hole led to a battle between several ships. This resulted in the deaths of fishermen from both towns, staining the waters with blood. In the decades since, Good Mead's trade in its justly famous brew began to outstrip the proceeds from its fishing hauls, to the point where most of the town's fisherfolk took up mead brewing instead. The only other building of note is the town's shrine to Tempus, the god of war. Unlike the Mead Hall, which is well cared for, the shrine's painted icons of the god of war are chipped and faded, and its hall is cramped by the standards of most southerners. The shrine was built over a century ago, when the town's rivalry with Dougan's Hole still raged. Dougan's Hole is the smallest of the 10 towns, and visitors who make the trek from Bryn Shander are likely to be underwhelmed when they finally reach the small cluster of dwellings perched on the edge of red waters. Even good Mead, barely more populous, seems more civilized with its decorated mead hall and its cultivation of the surrounding forest. The only improvements that the people of Dougan's Hole have made to their bit of shoreline are the 2 piers they built for launching their boats, and the gravel they put down between their dwellings to keep paths and roads from becoming a sodden mess. The residents depend entirely on the knucklehead trout they fish from redwaters. Local fisherfolk have hauled their smaller boats onto the shore and resorted to cutting holes in the ice to catch knucklehead trout, which they depend on for survival. The only truly interesting feature in the town is the ring of megaliths known as the 20 Stones of Thrun. Standing at the southern edge of town, 19 of these crudely fashioned granite menhirs are arranged in a perfect triangle, with a single stone anchoring the formation's center. No one knows who built the structure or why. The townsfolk maintain that the stones were there when the town's founder, Dougan du Bras, first happened upon his famous fishing spot. Many northern scribes have tried to research the origin of the structure's name, but all they found were allusions to a creature named Thrun in the oldest legends of the northern folk. Some speculate that Thrun was a god who disappeared from the pantheon of Faerun long ago. Founded by a Sembian family, Lonelywood is a quiet town of loggers and fisherfolk scratching out a living on the edge of the world. The town's oldest buildings and docks bear carvings of dragons, lions, and goat that pay deference to the family's crest, which featured a chimera. Roughly half of Lonelywood's able-bodied residents trawl the lake for knucklehead trout, while most of the others spend their days in the forest felling and hewing the trees that are used to construct boats and buildings. Lonelywood's timber is taken by cart to be sold in other settlements, Termalaine and Targos in particular. For as long as 10 towns has existed, Lonelywood has attracted the region's shadiest element. The fact of the matter is that almost every resident of Lonelywood has a secret past. It might be a crime for which that person has yet to face justice, a revelation too dangerous or shameful to divulge, or a loss too great to be overcome by mourning. Lonelywood's forest is the town's greatest asset, not only for its material wealth, but for the defense it provides against orcs and barbarians coming down Bremen's run. The wood's slow, oncoming pursuers, giving the townsfolk time to escape onto the safety of the lake. Most often, though, bands of raiders simply pass Lonelywood by, never realizing the town was there. Pavel's used goods is the closest thing that Lonelywood has to a general store. Buyers can find a wide array of goods here, from the mundane to the extraordinary, and generally at lower prices than can be found in Bryn Shander's market. But, like the people of Lonelywood, the goods sold here tend to have histories that aren't readily acknowledged by the shop's proprietor. The Lucky Liar Tavern is where fisherfolk and woodcutters gather to weave tall tales. The more outrageous and embellished, the better. Although the taverns in Bryn Shander might see a greater number of travellers, it is at the Lucky Liar that one can hear some of the most outrageous tales of adventure in the far-off corners of Faerun. Of course, most of the stories are heavily embellished, and some are outright fabrications. Like Bryn Shander, Targos is encircled by a wooden wall, which helps to protect the town against orcs and other threats from the wilderness. The wall extends out into the lake, creating a safe harbour for the town's boats. Almost all the towns in Icewind Dale make their living off the lakes, but nowhere is that fact more evident than in Targos. The town has always had the biggest fishing fleet and the biggest fishing industry, and everything that goes on here revolves around hauling the knucklehead trout out of Mare Dualden. Aurel's endless winter makes the work harder, but it gets done nonetheless. In Targos during the day, people walk through the street quickly, with their noses down, intent on getting their work done. When night falls and the last boats were in, the town goes quiet as the fisherfolk head for their beds to get what rest they can before the dawn finds them back out on the lake. The Luskan Arms is the oldest public house in 10 towns, established when Bryn Shander was still just the cabin on the hill, and Luskan was a thriving city. Many of the traders who came to Targos in those days hailed from Luskan, so the Luskan Arms was built to look like an inn that might be found in the city of Sails. As a result, much of the decor is hundreds of years old, proving a snapshot of Luskan as it was in the years before its decline and ruin. The Three Flags Sailing is the tavern where fisherfolk come to grab a bowl of stew and a quick pint before heading to bed. The atmosphere is subdued. The customers are usually weary from their long day's work, more interested in eating than socializing. Targos is the only community in 10 towns that has a guild, namely the Dockworkers Guild, representing the town's shipwrights, warehouse workers, and loaders. The guild was formed to ensure standards of quality and construction for the town's fishing vessels to prevent wildcat strikes by labourers who come to Targos during the busiest part of the fishing season. The town of Bremen sits sleepily on the west bank of Mare Dualden at the mouth of the Shangana River. Those who lack a boat to sail into the town's harbour can reach Bremen only by fording the river. This used to be a perilous proposition when the water was running high. If Aurel's everlasting winter has one benefit, it's that the hardy folk of Bremen are spared the seasonal floods that normally threaten the town in early summer. Buried Treasures Inn caters to Bremen's visitors, most of who come from other parts of 10 towns, to spend a few days panning the riverbanks. Since treasure hunting in this region is a warm weather activity, the inn is sparsely populated for most of the year. With Aurel's endless winter, it is a dark common room with a cold hearth upon arrival. 5 taverns stand in a semicircle around a central yard in the heart of Bremen. As the story goes, 5 brothers originally intended to build a tavern together, but each had assumed he would be the one to run the business. Each built his own tavern, and they all compete for customers. Wet Rock is a small island located nearby the town of Bremen. Rumours around Bremen claim that the old woman is a witch who treats with infernal powers, but the truth is much simpler. She fled a brutal husband in Waterdeep 15 years ago and can't trust anyone, especially men. Founded by Kalishite settlers who appreciated beauty, Termalaine is widely regarded as the most picturesque town in Icewind Dale. Spreading out from the shore of Mare Dualden and bordered on the north and west by tall pines. Its buildings incorporate carvings of wizards, tigers, and smiling djinn. For most visitors, the enchantment of the town is dispelled as soon as they feed the icy claws and teeth of the cold wind sweeping down from the north, shearing through their layers of clothing. Termalaine was built in the path of this dreadful gale, which continues well past the town to harry fisherfolk on the southern half of the lake. In addition to fishers, shipbuilders, and scrimshanders, Termalaine is home to miners who harvest gemstones from a cavern complex set into a low hill north and east of the settlement. Their efforts are hampered by creatures from the Underdark that occasionally find their way up the mine. Whenever such creatures are discovered, the mine is sealed off and the townsfolk wait until a band of sellswords or adventurers can be hired to clear it out. The town does not feel busy or crowded. Its spacious houses are widely spread along the avenues, and its inhabitants go leisurely about their days. Though rough and hard-working like all the other 10 towns, the folk of Termalaine are also friendly, good-natured and welcoming to strangers. Some say that's because they get so few travellers compared to the likes of Bryn Shander. But in truth, it's because the people of Termalaine love the small corner of Faerun they have carved out for themselves, and they want visitors to fall in love with it too. Termalaine's rivalry with Targos goes back as far as anyone can remember. For as long as folk of these two towns have been pulling Knucklehead out of the waters of Caer Dineval, they've been fighting over who pulled which fish out of what waters. Every day on the lake, fisherfolk from both towns can be heard yelling at each other. Most of the time, these grievances are voiced from a distance, but every so often the crews nudge each other's boats, and the yelling escalates to fisticuffs. The Eastway is the only paved road in Icewind Dale, and it runs from Bryn Shander straight across to Easthaven. Its construction linked Lac-Dinishire to the caravans that came through Bryn Shander, resulting in the explosive growth of Easthaven. On many occasions, the people of Targos and Termalaine have considered improving the road north from Bryn Shander to encourage more traffic, but the mistrust between the two towns has prevented them from cooperating long enough to bring the project to fruition. The snow falls endlessly over the 10 towns: Bremen, Bryn Shander, Caer Konig, Caer Dineval, Dougan's Hole, Easthaven, Mead, Lonelywood, Targos, and Termalaine. Each settlement unique in its purpose and character. The Frostmaiden's unrelenting grip has turned life into a harsh and frozen trial, where food is scarce, warmth is a luxury, and each day lived is a small victory. From the towering walls of Bryn Shander to the desolate beauty of Lonelywood's forest, every town carries its share of mysteries. In Dougan's Hole, eerie rumours of strange lights flicker in the tundra, while the still waters of Easthaven hold secrets beneath their frozen surface. In Mead, whispers of brewing traditions mingle with the shadows of tragedy, while the distant light of Caer Konig shines faintly, a beacon against the darkness encroaching from the spine of the world. Each town bears its burdens, united only by the Ten Trail that winds like a lifeline through the frozen expanse. This solitary path, treacherous and unforgiving, is the thread that binds these outposts together, a reminder that survival in Icewind Dale is not an individual struggle, but a shared fight against the cold. Yet, this is not the first time 10 towns has stood against a force greater than themselves. Decades ago, the land bore witness to the rise of the crystal shard, Crenshinabon, a relic of unimaginable power and malice. Its influence nearly consumed this fragile region, as it drew the ambitious and the desperate under its spell, threatening to enslave the towns beneath its icy dominion. Heroes rose to face it, carving their names into legend as they battled not only the shard, but the dark forces it attracted. The Frostmaiden's Rime has forged a new age of hardship, and though the crystal shard is gone, its legacy endures as a reminder of the hidden forces that shape this land. In this frozen corner of the world, every path is perilous, every town a fragile refuge, and every secret a potential doom. Ten Trail and the Crystal Shard remain a frozen testament to the resilience and fragility of life on the edge of the world. Merry Christmas, and thank you for watching the video. Thank you to Alberto and DJ. Like and subscribe. See you all on the next video.